Welcome. I'm Isabel Munoz, and in this presentation, I will provide key points about the paper on the narrative tapestry design process. I report on findings that help unpack the dynamic nature of social support in the context of a stigmatized health condition. To start, we adopt Goffman's definition of stigma as an attribute that is deeply discrediting. We see stigma as an ever-evolving and often resisted social process. Our paper focuses on the heavily stigmatized condition of HIV, but stigma can cut across other health conditions. In this work, transitions are also important as they signal a move from one life phase, status, or condition to another. Transitions entail identity work as individuals may experience dissonance between their former and their present self. Stigma adds to the complexity of transitions. The structural and social stigma associated with certain health conditions like HIV exacerbate the identity challenges of individuals who are also managing and coping with a new health condition. Online communities exist to help individuals manage health transitions. Specifically, online support systems are spaces where peer support is available, often without the need to disclose personally identifying information. This has been shown to be particularly helpful for those who are dealing with stigmatized health conditions. Through their design, online support systems help individuals perform identity work. However, research has shown that these communities are destined to collapse. This is due to individuals' need changing over time. As people move through health transitions, individuals' acute support needs are met and may no longer need the support system. This is problematic given that those individuals may be critical for the sustainability of these online communities. This leads me and my co-authors to 3 questions. The first is, how can we design a sustainable online support system for people living with HIV? Secondly, how do those people's needs change as they transition through the stigma of an HIV diagnosis? And finally, how can we elicit requirements with only limited access to a much larger stigmatized population? The participants for our study included 7 HIV-positive individuals from Southern Indiana and Western Kentucky, regions with persistent stigmatizing attitudes towards people with HIV. The table on this slide shows the demographics of participants, and the map on the right highlights the lack of reporting for HIV statistics in Kentucky. Rural areas like these tend to lack access to technology and care networks, complicating access to social support. Our next slides discuss our method to address our research questions. Our paper introduces Narrative Tapestry, which is a participatory design process that helps a small group of individuals draw on their knowledge to tell stories about a larger population for whom we seek to design technology. The participatory process draws on storytelling and the incorporation of a hands-on game to create a third space, which allows for reflection, exploration, and trust building. The narrative tapestry process is organized around 5 steps. First is personal story elicitation. In this stage, participants were invited to share stories about themselves and others they knew who were also HIV positive. This step helped us build a foundation of knowledge about the experiences of the broader population of individuals living with HIV. Our second step was a persona development activity. In this step, participants were asked to create characters that might not be part of our subject pool, but might become part of an online community for those living with HIV. This activity served as a foundation for characters in a story-building card game we ended up naming Woven. Step number 3 includes story analysis and segmentation to continue developing this game. In this step, researchers analyzed transcripts from the collected stories to extract actions, events, and consequences that were common across the various narratives that we had heard. These served as additional cards for Woven. The 4th step was gameplay. In this step, researchers and participants played the Woven card game. Players took turns to put down a set of cards which created a plausible story of a person living with HIV. All of these stories were recorded for subsequent analysis and discussion. The 5th and final step of the narrative tapestry design process included sense-making and synthesis. In this step, researchers and participants worked collectively to analyze and discuss what we learned in the game, including discussing stories that may not have been told, as well as drawing together a set of common needs and design recommendations. Through the narrative tapestry process, our participants helped us build 14 character cards, as well as various special interaction, action, event, and consequence cards. The game elicited 7 collaborative stories about individuals transitioning into and beyond an HIV diagnosis. You can learn more about the game in the paper. Through the narrative tapestry process, we arrived at several findings, which I will discuss next. The first of our findings points to the critical need for support among individuals with a stigmatized identity. Early social support was widely discussed as a lifeline that could save people from a cycle of loneliness, despair, and even self-neglect. One of our participants, named Cristiano, discussed having a friend who was abandoned by his social group when they learned about his HIV diagnosis. Frederick, another participant, noted that those with positive HIV diagnosis may benefit from counseling or a group session with others who are also HIV positive. In discussing the need for social support, he said, quote, "Then they don't feel lonely anymore because everyone is like them," end quote. Beyond acute social support, we also highlight the importance of companionship. Specifically, we found that individuals with a stigmatized identity have a need for deeper relationships and may even want romantic entanglements. Our participants discussed the ways stigma creates a significant barrier for HIV-positive people seeking intimacy. A participant noted, quote, "Even though I'm very positive and try to be energizing, sometimes I think, am I ever going to find somebody?" End quote. He noted deeply wanting to form a bond and a family. Participants noted that while HIV-friendly dating sites do exist, these tend to emphasize a hookup culture. So the need to pursue romantic entanglements remains. For the HIV-positive population, normalizing intimacy is yet another way of addressing the continuing burden of stigma and may help place support within a broader context. One final insight concerned the ongoing need to address stigma. While support and romantic connections may help address some of the challenges faced by these individuals, it does not get at the root cause of stigma. We found that as individuals with HIV transition through an initial diagnosis and learn to manage the condition, addressing stigma directly becomes critical. There are different ways participants envision engaging in this form of work, including enabling local change agents. Abby, for example, who was one of our participants, described her previous experiences working to educate religious leaders. She said, quote, "What we did was for churches and the mosque. They have a lot of discrimination there," end quote. She went on to explain how after several days of trainings, church leaders themselves helped to inform their own congregation about HIV and even led to increased testing rates among the community. This example highlights the power of advocacy and one way individuals might be empowered to address the problem of social stigma more directly. Based on these insights, we arrive at a set of design recommendations for building sustainable social support platforms for individuals living with the stigmatized condition. In order to sustain a community of individuals transitioning through phases of health conditions, we need to build platforms that provide tools beyond social support. For example, features to support an HIV-positive community might include mechanisms for a closed community, emergency contact list, and traditional support. However, those facing the extended challenge of living with HIV might benefit from features that include signifiers for romantic availability, private chat, and norms against a hookup culture. Our work also points to the importance of features to help address stigma. Training materials and event planning support may become essential for empowering some members who are interested in this type of advocacy work. By addressing the needs of individuals as their identities evolve, we can build communities where these sort of transformed individuals could play an important role for those beginning their journey through a stigmatized identity. We hope that our method and findings offer others a concrete basis for developing platforms for other stigmatized groups, ultimately leading to a new type of platform that both nurture individuals across these turbulent disruptions while at the same time addressing the problem of stigma. To learn more about our method and our findings, please be sure to check out our paper and live session at CSCW 2021.